Anita, welcome. Welcome. We're looking forward to this session. And being the only woman in this session, I'm sure we're going to unpack a lot of things, especially in the continent, especially in Nigeria, where you've added so much value to the energy, renewable energy sector. So you're going to pick any topic that you feel comes to you easily on this in this conversation. However, our session is an energy transition and alternative sources of energy. So I'm going to read a little bio about you, if you don't mind, and so that the listeners and the audience will get to know who we're talking to, right, and who's talking to us. Anita is currently a senior director at Sustainable Energy for All. She leads on the program delivery of the Universal Energy Facility, a multi-door funded result-based financing facility for the development of renewable energy projects across sub-Saharan Africa towards bridging the energy access and reliability gap, with a focus in productive use and sustainable impact on lives and businesses. Anita, thank you so much. Please, if you have a presentation, go ahead with it. Otherwise, we have a couple of questions to ask you. Please, the floor is yours.
Sure. I think you have, I had submitted the slides. Can you share it from your end? Is that okay?
Okay. So I will get the back end to do that just in a second. Yes, give me a second and I will get them to do that. Okay. So I will get the back end to do that. Right. So whilst we're trying to get the slides on, Anita, can we just have an interactive conversation along these lines? Oh, there it is. There it is.
So I'm not sure if it's from my end or from your end. Let me see. Yes. Okay, next slide, please. So I'm going to be presenting on essentially protecting our environment, but with an energy transition focus. As you know, we're in a very difficult situation at the moment. The UN Convention on Biological Diversity identifies climate change caused by CO2 emissions as one of the top 5 threats to the global environment. In 2022, emissions from China were flat. Emissions from the EU dropped, which was great, while emissions from the US and the rest of Asia unfortunately increased. Things haven't gotten better. In March 2023, the IEA reported that global energy-related CO2 emissions grew by 0.9%. Furthermore, under energy combustion-related emissions, within the last 1 year, 16 metric tons of carbon CO2 is attributed to cooling and heating due to demands of extreme weather. In addition, energy combustion and industrial processes are identified as the major sources of emission. So with the crisis that we currently have globally in terms of the levels of emissions, it's interesting to note, which I'm sure you all know, that Africa contributes between 2 to 3.8% of these emissions, as identified by UNFCCC. Yet it experiences the devastating effects of extreme weather associated to the emission-triggered climate change. Next slide, please. So with that being said, understanding the detrimental effects that emissions are having on our environment, it's very important that the world moves towards transitioning to net zero, essentially transitioning to a carbon neutral environment. But at the same time, whilst we transition towards achieving net zero, it's really important that we ensure that nobody is left behind. What do I mean by this? In Africa, you can't speak about transitioning from something you don't have. So if you don't have access to electricity, it's very difficult to really push or get the buy-in from the locals with regards to transitioning to net zero. It's important for us to be able to show them what the immediate benefits are in transitioning to net zero. So how do we do this? Ensuring that we bridge the energy access gap within these countries by utilizing renewable energy technologies. So whether it's mini grids, standalone systems for productive use, solar home systems, containerized solar hybrid solutions, captive solar hybrid power plants, whatever it is, provided we are able to ensure that these people who do not have access to electricity, who are not able to develop economically, that we're able to at least provide some immediate solutions for them, which can get their buy-in to the whole energy transition drive. I hope that makes sense. So essentially, within the last decade, there has been a universal call for transition from fossil fuel-based to renewable energy technologies. Access to clean and reliable energy not only has huge socio-economic development benefits, but also significant benefits as it concerns climate impact. Furthermore, energy transition plans have become very necessary to accelerate energy access and reduce emissions at the same time for developing countries in sub-Saharan Africa. So that will take me to the next slide, where I speak about what the Universal Energy Facility is doing towards supporting governments achieve net zero between 2050 and 2060. Next slide, please. Okay, so SC4's efforts in driving energy access with environmental considerations at the forefront. As you can see, there are a number of programs that SC4 is embarking upon. We have the Powering Healthcare program. So again, transitioning from powering our healthcare facilities from using the standard diesel gensets or other fossil fueled power generators to utilizing solar solutions. So whether it's rooftop solar or whether it's your containerized solar hybrid solution, your standalone solar solution, to ensure that healthcare facilities are adequately powered in order for them to provide the necessary services to save lives within these countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And then the Universal Energy Facility, which I will speak to later on. I guess the questions will be asked targeted to UEF, where essentially we're providing support to private sector companies who essentially build out mini grids to provide adequate power supply to households, MSMEs, as well as other public institutions, healthcare, educational facilities. And then, as I'd mentioned, energy transition plans. So working with country governments to develop their energy transition plans with focuses on 5 verticals, including oil and gas, power, clean cooking, industry, and transportation towards achieving carbon neutrality. So we've already started working with, we've already developed the plan, the energy transition plan for Nigeria. We're working with Ghana, we're working with Barbados, Kenya, to name a few, and we're still in constant communications and discussions with other countries who are really taking those bold steps towards achieving net zero as agreed upon during COP27. And then we also have a clean cooking initiative. So ensuring that we contribute towards the development of a thriving global market for clean and efficient cook stoves, again, to improve the general health of mainly women who happen to be cooking in Africa using oftentimes wood and other unhealthy sources of energy. So supporting with e-cooking, for example, in order to drive down the emissions that are contributed as a result of non-clean cooking devices. And then finally, our renewable energy manufacturing initiative. I'm not going to mention all of them, but a few of them, the renewable energy manufacturing initiative, where we're actually supporting countries in building renewable energy manufacturing plants within those countries in order to support to grow jobs, to make jobs available, as well as to improve upon the supply chain of renewable energy components or products or equipment in order to significantly scale up the development of solar home systems, or whether it's mini grids within these countries that require access to reliable power supply. So that concludes my very short presentation. Unfortunately, I was given just 10 minutes. I'd have loved to go into more.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Anita. Thank you.
No problem.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions. We just have 5 more minutes before this session is over, and I'm going to utilize this 5 minutes because I've been looking for you, right? And I see everything you guys are doing at the Universal Energy Facility.
Yeah.
Very commendable, I must say. Understanding the transition we have to make from using fossil fuel into using renewable energies to sustain the environment that we all must protect. In the Universal Energy Facility, right? What are you doing to bridge the gap of accessibility of implementing renewable energy projects in sub-Saharan Africa? What are the challenges you guys are having, and what is the long-term impact for sustainability?
Okay, very good question. I mean, everybody probably knows all of the challenges by now. There are always so many of these conferences in which these issues are shared. The common issue is obviously access to finance. It's estimated that about 600 million people in Africa don't have access to a reliable power supply, and the World Bank has estimated that you need about between 6.6 to 11 billion US dollars in order to bridge this energy access gap, utilizing renewable energy technology. Now, the challenge here is that most countries in Africa are not really deemed as being attractive enough to invest in terms of viability issues. Whether these people are willing and actually able to pay for power supplied should such technology be deployed to these communities. And so what the UEF is doing to sort of address that issue is to provide grant subsidies that should ultimately attract private sector companies, because it also de-risks these businesses as well, knowing that there are grant subsidies that they can blend with either the equity or the debt that they're investing in these projects. It also assures them of a good portion of their money being returned back to them within the shortest time frame. So for example, we pay roughly about 60% of the cost of a connection, so like $592 per connection. So if they know that they're going to get a good 60% of the cost of the capital expenditure within 12 months of delivering these projects, it definitely reduces that viability gap and makes it a lot more attractive. So that's the very essence of providing these grant subsidies. In addition, it doesn't just help the private sector companies build out these mini grids. It doesn't just make it more viable, but it also works towards making these projects more affordable for the end users. That's also another challenge with renewable energy projects in Africa, the affordability of them. Can these people actually pay? So when we're providing these grant subsidies, the hope is that ultimately it should drive down the cost of the tariff, drive down the cost to the end user to make it more affordable. I don't know if I still have time to talk about other challenges.
Okay, two more minutes. So we're just going to stay on this accessibility, sustainability, and of these projects. Now I hear you say subsidy, okay? And if you're in Nigeria, I'm sure subsidy has become a word on everybody's mouth. Considering the removal of subsidy by the present administration, fuel subsidy, that is. Now, the challenge with the fuel subsidy, like we all know, especially players in the industry, is that the subsidy, as it is a good scheme, right? But the implementation of it is what the real issues are. Now, are we going to see the same kind of situation where the subsidy is, not as implemented as it should be, and for the benefit of the end users, which, for example, are the people who are supposed to be having, access to clean energy and all of that? So, is there a well thought out plan to manage the subsidy on renewable energy, our power projects for the end users?
Yeah. First of all, it's important to mention that the objective is not to have subsidies forever. We're hoping that the market should mature to the point where these projects ordinarily without subsidies are viable, and the end users should be able to get to the point where they can afford to pay for this power, because that productive use element should hopefully be a part of these businesses that are being, or these mini grid projects that are being developed within these communities. That's really the ultimate goal. But with that being said, power that's typically generated from your usual sources of power in most African countries still being subsidized, and they're regularly being subsidized. Whereas under the Universal Energy Facility, the subsidy that's being provided is just for the capital expenditure, just for a portion of the capital expenditure. It's not an ongoing subsidy. It doesn't provide subsidy for operations and maintenance and so on. It's literally just for the initial capital investment. Yeah. So just to make that point. I don't know if was there another part to the question?
Yeah. So how do you? So example, we have rollout for the equipment and you subsidize it initially. How do you ensure that subsidization is well implemented? Absolutely.
Yeah. So first of all, we adopt a results-based financing approach. So we only provide subsidies upon actual tangible results, right? Initially, the Universal Energy Facility only provided these subsidy payouts after 30 days of supply of power from those mini grids to the households, right? To ensure that not only were those projects built, but they're actually fit for purpose as well. And then we also look at the modeling structure in terms of the tariff, the calculation, to ensure that the cost has been impacted as a result of the subsidy that's being provided. However, we've recently amended this payment structure to allow for earlier milestone payments. So we make a payment of 40% of, let's say, the 60% at the point of major equipment arriving at site, and then another 40% at the point of the commissioning of these mini grids, and then the balance of 20% after 30 days, because we still want to be sure that these projects are actually, fit for purpose. So, yeah.
All right. I'm gonna butt in here, Anita. I am so sorry. I know there's so much to unpack here. There's so much to unpack. So much. So we're going to have subsequent, symposiums like this and forums like this for us to sort of because the whole idea is to put out the advocacy there. The whole idea is to make sure that power gets to the layman. To make sure that if there's subsidy, it is properly implemented. And of course, like we all know, subsidies don't last forever, because that's not the goal. But we're going to pause here. This is a pause, not a full stop. All right, Anita. So we would have other opportunities to have conversations with you and everything you're doing in the energy transition sector. Thank you so much, Anita.
No problem.